As we said, there's been a lot of talk and will be this election season about non-citizen voting in Missouri, something that is already against the law. But there's another fight on the other side of this coin, as advocacy groups argue it's increasingly harder for citizens to vote. A 2-year legal battle went back to court this past week between the state of Missouri and 2 voting rights groups, the state's chapters of the League of Women Voters and the NAACP. At the center of it all is a sweeping voting law passed by the General Assembly in 2022. Baked into this thing, along with requiring government-issued ID at the polls, are provisions affecting groups and people who work to get out the vote, like barring a person from being paid to get people to register to vote, and requiring anyone who helps more than 10 people sign up to register with the state. It also mandates these people be at least 18 years old and a registered Missouri voter. Advocacy groups argue that these measures limit their efforts to encourage voting, and a judge agreed. He stopped those provisions from taking effect, and they've been on hold ever since the fall of 2022. Again, this fight has gone on for years. In fact, Secretary of State Jay Ashcroft came on this program in 2022 and denied those provisions suppress any efforts to get out the vote.
The law doesn't stifle them from helping people to register to vote. We do require them to register with us if they're going out and soliciting registrations. We do that because of fraudulent registration forms we've had.
The state has maintained the groups haven't met the burden that they need to reach in court to have these parts of the law permanently overturned. They call those provisions quality control. What happens now is especially important considering we're just about 2 months away from a major election. Let's get to the heart of the matter with Denise Lieberman, Director and General Counsel for the Missouri Voter Protection Coalition. Welcome back, Denise. And we know that you've been representing these advocacy groups in court on this case. What's the latest and what happens now?
Thanks for having me back, Cody. Yeah, we were in trial this week to present testimony and cross-examine the state's witnesses, including the Secretary of State's office, about the underlying motivations for these provisions. And even the Secretary of State's office admitted that fraudulent registrations don't make it onto the voter rolls because we have so many quality controls already in place. We also heard testimony from the Secretary of State's office that technology has really sped up this process. The internal statewide voter registration database allows the election authorities to compare information on a voter registration card to information maintained by motor vehicle offices, by the Social Security Administration, by the Department of Health and Senior Services, with the Social Security Death Index, with the Department of Corrections, with the probate courts, and that ensures that anyone who's making it onto the rolls is a real person and that they haven't passed away, that they are not disqualified because of a criminal record or a finding of incapacity.
Important note there. The judge who had issued this injunction originally 2 years ago ruled that these provisions that you're talking about are too vague on who or what they cover. What are your main problems with these measures?
Absolutely. These measures infringe on fundamental rights of freedom of speech, expression, association, and they are unduly vague and they're viewpoint based. The court used dictionary definitions. It became clear that even our government officials can't fully define what constitutes soliciting somebody to register to vote. And that's why our clients, the League of Women Voters and the Missouri State Conference of the NAACP, had to essentially halt all of their voter registration activities for the short amount of time this law was in effect in 2022. They felt that they couldn't have signs up that said register to vote here, that they couldn't link people even to the Secretary of State's online voter registration portal, that they couldn't even direct people to where they could find an absentee ballot application online, which is available on the Secretary of State's website, because that might be considered soliciting an absentee ballot application and result in a potential felony conviction and loss of voting rights for the rest of your life. We should not be criminalizing third-party voter registration organizations that are simply trying to improve our democracy by expanding the electorate, bridging that voter registration gap, and ensuring that all eligible Missourians are able to make their voices heard at the polls on Election Day.
I do want to ask what this means for the current election cycle. We have a big election year, many important issues and races on the ballot. What's the sense right now among those groups and among voters?
Well, we are in the middle of a presidential election season, as you well know. So voter registration is happening quite a bit right now. It's very important that organizations know that they have a right to get out and participate in the voter registration process. There is an injunction in place. So at this point, Cody, voter registration organizations and voter registration solicitors are able to be paid for the work that they are doing. The law simply provides that if you are being paid to register 10 or more people, you do have to complete that solicitation form with the Secretary of State. In addition, anybody can register people to vote in the state of Missouri. You do not need to be over 18 or a Missouri registered voter yourself. And unpaid volunteers don't need to undertake the bureaucratic process of submitting an application to the Secretary of State. Only those paid staffers that are doing this as part of their jobs. And so people should get out there, let their friends and neighbors know that their voice is important and that they do need to register by the October 9th voter registration deadline if they want to make their voices heard in the November presidential elections.
Well, we appreciate you clearing up any confusion. We know closing arguments are probably coming up in the next month or two. Denise Lieberman, thanks for your time. Please keep us posted. Count on KMBC 9 News as we watch the developments in this case and what this means for you at the polls. We'll have coverage to and through Election Day.